Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing the battles that helped me reach a season high ELO of 34-33 in the Open Great League. But also, I'm going to be talking about why one of these teammates is actually a lot less strong than I thought upon initially testing it. Now, the team is featuring one of my favorite Pokemon to run currently in the Open Great League, Shadow Annihilape. It's unbelievable, and I'm pairing it up with two Pokemon that have resistances to Charm. That's Corviknight as the safe switch and Toxapex as the closer. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and let's take a look at the team in action. We're picking up a terrible lead in the first match, leading Shadow Annihilape into Jump Bluff. I'm expecting they're going to throw before I get the Ice Punch, so I throw 6, and I correctly predict that they overfarm by 1 and get an Aerial Ace catch onto Corviknight. Corviknight is now going to be answered with a Diggersby, and you may notice I have some very weird IVs on this Corviknight, and that is intentional. This Corviknight is so attack weighted that it actually reaches a breakpoint where it does 2 damage per sand attack to Diggersby instead of 1, and this does allow Corviknight to, if I'm not mistaken, win the 1 shield versus Diggersby. In this instance, I have already taken damage on the Corviknight, so I'm not looking to win switch here, but baiting out the Diggersby is quite nice for me, because that way, my poor Toxapex will not have to deal with it. Opponent is actually going to aggressively switch into the Jump Bluff, and they are going to fire off an Aerial Ace. I'm going to bank a ton of energy, switch into the Toxapex. Now I get to punish the aggressive Jump Bluff switch in and bank a truly insurmountable energy lead on the Shadow Annihilape. Shadow Annihilape is going to apply massive pressure onto anything that it faces. Jump Bluff is going to fire off the energy ball that is going to hit for quite a lot of damage. I'm going to farm up and fire off the Brine. They're still switch locked here, so I may as well knock them out or force a shield. Opponent is going to now send in Diggersby, and Diggersby does not get to the Scorching Sands. Diggersby got close, but unfortunately not quite able to get there. I have so much energy on the Toxapex. Opponent is now going to bring in Feraligatr. Feraligatr, I get to full send a Sludge Wave, and then I have a bunch of energy available on my Shadow Annihilape. Shadow Annihilape is going to go for a Rage Fist. I do want to preserve some energy, so when they do eventually switch into the Jump Bluff, they're forced to throw. They are not just going to be able to farm me down and leave with a bunch of energy. There's the switch in. They do get the combo play, but the good news for me is I get to farm down with Toxapex. And Toxapex should tank any one move because I have a very high rank Toxapex. Opponent made it to the energy ball, but Toxapex just does not care. I forgot how low the Feraligatr was in the moment. I could have just brined, but a Sludge Wave will definitely also do the trick. We move to game number 2, Shadow Annihilape versus Shadow Drapion. This is a very good lead. Now, upon initially reviewing Corviknight, I had great results with it, so I put out a video saying that honestly, I thought it was absolutely amazing. And I was a bit surprised over the first few hours that the video was out. People were excited, they tried it, and they really didn't have the same results. They thought that it felt clunky, it didn't have a lot of fast move pressure, and in even matchups, if you're even shield, even energy, it felt uncomfortable to use. So I ended up trying it more, and I still felt that it was working pretty well for me. Here, we actually are going to have a Marowak in the back. For some reason, it's actually not Shadow Marowak, but I think this battle will actually be a decent descriptor of what I'm referring to. And that's that Corviknight, if it's in a situation where it's on even energy or slightly down energy, it ends up struggling a lot in neutral matchups. The way that I played it in my initial video was I was switching it in aggressively, and if you can get it up a couple sand attacks, then Corviknight can put in quite a lot of work. But here, I mean, granted, I'm running a very low bulk Corviknight, but this is Corviknight struggling a little bit against a Mud Slapper. I believe since I am running such high attack, there is actually a Mud Slap breakpoint that the opponents are getting onto me, a lost bulk point since my defense is not nearly as high as it typically would be. But I feel like that it was part of the disconnect in terms of when I first tried it, is the way that it has to be played in its current iteration is you basically have to be aggressive with it. You have to be aggressively switching it in, because in these static matchups, if you're slightly behind on energy or if energy's even, it can feel very underwhelming just due to the fact that sand attack not really farming a lot of things down. Here we're going up against SS Thorn, and it's a terrible lead leading into Wigglytuff. Opponent is going to respond to the Corviknight safe switch with Diggersby, and this is exactly why I am running the very weird Corviknight spread that I am running. Because, as you see, the sand attacks actually add up a lot here. Normally, if sand attacks only doing 1 damage, this matchup is miserable. Diggersby has a dominating matchup, but the goal was while running this tech to try and throw off opponents a little bit. They might feel comfortable safe switching a Diggersby or counter switching a Diggersby into my safe swap, and then I could be able to punish it with the Corviknight. So Corviknight, I should actually be able to shield, farm down, and flip switch, and that's very nice because now I'm going to have the Wigglytuff on the Toxapex. And I'm very close to the Iron Head, and it's only one stand attack away, so I get the Iron Head into the Wigglytuff. Iron Head is going to be shielded. In comes the Toxapex. In the back is Corsola, and this is absolutely awful. Unfortunately, on this team, I forgot to bring a Corsola counter. All three of these Pokemon lose to Corsola, so seeing Corsola is very, very bad. I switch in the Annihilape just because Annihilape is useless anyway going up against the Wigglytuff, but I still get basically no value out of it, and now I'm in a very difficult, basically unwinnable position because Toxapex struggles immensely against Corsola. In this moment, I still had hope that maybe a Brine plus a Sludge Wave could knock out, but as we're going to see, once this Brine damage lands, there's just no way. I would need 2 more Brines. I'm getting outpaced. A Nightshade is landing, so even though unfortunately Corviknight was actually able to do something in this match, I just have nothing for Corsola, so I will need to resign the match. We've got a mirror Shadow Annihilape versus Shadow Annihilape. So, I'm just going to very confidently play to the CMP tie. I do win CMP over basically every other Annihilape, with a few exceptions. Just a very high attack spread, intentionally so, because I will often run something in the back that does not do well against Annihilape. So, losing the mirror is not an option. And you can see by how much damage their counters are doing to me that they are running a more optimized ape and I am running a more attack-weighted ape. So I can very comfortably win CMP every single time, just by virtue of having the significantly different spread. Here, my opponent is going to make a nice catch onto Toxapex. Toxapex will absorb the Rage Fist damage. Unfortunately, it turns out I'm just too low. I can't quite bank the Rage Fist that I would have liked to bank, but I can send out Corviknight. Corviknight, more than happy to absorb Brines and just try and get a truly massive farm. I am saving the Toxapex in the back because if push comes to shove, I can use Toxapex to absorb energy from that Annihilape. The Annihilape does have a Rage Fist banked. It would be very close as to whether or not the Rage Fist would KO, so they're not going to risk it. They're going to bring in Dugong. I ended up throwing on alignment because I was expecting them to bring in the Annihilape, but now I get to land an Iron Head plus a Sky Attack. That just does huge damage, and we simultaneously switch my Toxapex into their Shadow Annihilape. And now that they have undone their boost by switching out, I'm very okay tanking 2 Rage Fists here. That is what Toxapex is there for, to be very, very bulky. So Toxapex is going to get the full farm down. I should be only 2 away from a Sludge Wave. And if the move KOs and wins the game, I do not really care about timing. So we fire off the Sludge Wave, and that game will end in a win. Shadow Annihilape versus Wigglytuff. Bad lead. I am going to need to save switch into the Corviknight. Corviknight is safe swapped. The opponent responds with Dunsparce, and this is honestly not a terrible matchup for the Corviknight. This is one of the few matchups where Corviknight can actually do quite well, especially being up energy. I'm going to make this Dunsparce's life very, very uncomfortable. Dunsparce is going to be hit with a Sky Attack. They are going to use a shield. Dunsparce fires off a Rock Slide, but Rock Slide, not the greatest move ever, especially when it does not get same type attack bonus, so I will be able to let that go. Corviknight now going to go for an Iron Head. Iron Head, the worst move to go for, but I'm thinking if they try and farm down, I can get to 2, and I can. That is incredible. So Corviknight, honestly, showing shades of what impressed me so much in that first video. Like, getting both shields from a Dunsparce switch-in makes you feel very good about the Pokemon. But it's basically only that particular situation when this occurs. In neutrals, that would not happen. Here, I do survive on 1 HP, but it's a Shadow Marowak in the back, and unfortunately, I just needed to win switch. If I won switch, I won this game. I am going to have to give up both shields here. There is no way around it. I will need to leave with enough residual energy after throwing the 2 Brines that I will be able to outpace the Wigglytuff. My opponent is going to throw on alignment, trying to go for a CMP tie. I'm going to do 2 and the move here because I need that much residual energy, and unfortunately they make another move. Even if I do 1 in the move and I throw, unfortunately the Wigglytuff is actually able to outpace, so I wouldn't be able to win there anyway. Alright, we pick up a tough lead in the next match, going up against a fellow content creator, Chiliss FM. And Chiliss has a core breaker for us, leading into Malamar. I do play Chiliss quite a bit, and I feel like he's really had my number lately. It has not been going well for me. I fire off the Rage Fist, it ends up being a CMP tie, and if I shield this, I'm getting farmed down. So I may as well just let it go and send out Toxapex. Toxapex, I'm going to throw a Brine on 9 here to avoid a catch, and he switches. And unfortunately, I end up throwing a Brine onto a Qwilfish. Oh, that is a very cool pick. Qwilfish, typically going to run Poison Sting, Aqua Tail, and then a wide variety of different charge attacks. Can be Ice Beam, can be, I believe it's Sludge Wave that it has, not Sludge Bomb. And in this instance, of course, unfortunately, they are walled, so they're forced to go for Aqua Tails, but I am going to be firing off this Sludge Wave. My opponent is going to go down both shields. I'm still not in Aqua Tail range. I'm just going to look to overfarm. Opponent is going to send out Toxapex, so it's Malamar double Water Poison, a very cool team. And Corviknight, again, in evens, it honestly does not feel the greatest, but up shields, I should be in a very nice position. These sand attacks are eating away at this Toxapex. I get to fire off the Sky Attack, and Sky Attack is going to get my opponent quite low. I'm going to no shield, as I know that Brine is not going to be the move that does the most damage here, and I am going to look for a farm down. It looks like I won't get the farm down, so I'm forced to fire off my energy when I get to the double Iron Head. The Iron Head is going to pick up the knockout. In comes the Qwilfish, and the Qwilfish does have at least 2 Aqua Tails loaded. I do see a win condition, and that is to switch. I shield one, I switch, because I have a very bulky Toxapex. I can tank that move, and no matter where this Sludge Wave lands, whether it's on the Qwilfish or the Malamar, this game is a win. It lands on the Qwilfish, in comes the Malamar. Malamar, my move does not show up, but by the amount of residual energy they have, they should not have back-to-back here, so I will still win the game, but man, please fix the one-turn lag. Like, I'm very lucky that it didn't cost me the game that time, but it definitely could have if my opponent had back-to-back. Our next opponent is a scary one. It's going to be EUIC runner-up Zweilous. He's leading the Primeape that he actually ran at that tournament to great success, and now he's safe switch into the Talonflame. Talonflame, I fire off the Brine. Talonflame at 100 energy, which is enough for a Fly plus a Brave Bird. Brave Bird is going to connect. He's going for the Fly, and now how much do I trust my Toxapex? I let it go. I survive. Shout out to Toxapex. He's unable to flip switch, and that's very good news for me. In comes Primeape. I'm going to send in Annihilape, but that's terrible news for me. It's a Corsola in the back, and leaderboards have started using Corsola again, so this is me thoroughly getting punished for not bringing any Pokemon that beat Corsola. Even if Corviknight runs Payback, it does not beat Corsola. So, unfortunately, I did try out a different Corviknight with Payback for a bit, and I still ended up feeling underwhelmed in neutral situations, unfortunately. I will be able to grab a final shield here, but the issue that I'm going to have is the Primeape can pretty easily get to a charge attack, and the Corsola has a lot of energy as well. So, I'm going to be firing off the Rage Fist. Rage Fist is going to be shielded, and here he makes a brilliant play. He undertaps this move, knowing that I'm 3 off and he's 3 off. And Primeape wins CMP over Annihilape. Those are the kind of plays that can get you super far in tournaments. Just precision in gameplay there from Zweilous, and I just can't win. Shadow Annihilape versus Talonflame. Now, this is a matchup where Talonflame will have to go down shields to win it. If they no-shield the first Rage Fist, I can shield once and then fully counter down before they get their second move. So my opponent is forced to shield, which is very good news for me. They are now going to be firing off their Fly, and I can shield it because I can throw 2 more counters and another Rage Fist, and I will be able to get switch advantage or shield advantage. Rage Fist is going to be shielded, opponent is going to get the full farm down, and now I get to send out Toxapex. Toxapex is going to look for the full farm down. Opponent is going to fire off the Brave Bird. I can now farm them down, but they get damage registration error and they make another Brave Bird. They're not supposed to make that move, but they do. I save the shield for Corviknight, and in comes Shadow for Alligator. Now, this is a very uncomfortable spot to be in because Sky Attack is going to do significant damage. Sky Attack lands, but I cannot Sand Attack down before they can make the back-to-back moves. And that's part of what just makes this Pokemon feel frustrating to use the more that I use it. Is there's a lot of situations where I think the biggest issue is Sand Attack on it, to be honest. And now, I believe we end up finding out it's Azu in the back, so if my opponent didn't get the damage registration error, I have a half-health Toxapex, and I can win the game. But unfortunately, they did, and without the Toxapex, I just could not win. All right, the final match is going to be a Shadow Annihilape mirror, and we do not lose CMP in this house. I believe I've only lost CMP twice in the Annihilape mirror, and one of these was actually while filming for this video, but it's someone who I am familiar with, and I didn't necessarily want to dox their Annihilape IVs, so I am actually going to not show that particular footage, just so they can still have the element of surprise in Go Battle League. But it looks like I am pretty comfortably winning the CMP tie here all 3 times. No catch out of it, so my opponent is more than happy to just let the Annihilape go and try for farm. They're going to bring in Feraligatr, and they lose so much HP right away. In the back, they have Licky Licky, and I get to send out Corviknight. If this Licky Licky is on Earthquake, then they're going to be walled here. There's not much they can do. Body Slam, Earthquake. They would need Shadow Ball, and they do have Shadow Ball. I can now get to farm up a lot with the Corviknight. They can Shadow Ball to KO me, but I still should be in a good enough position to win with the Toxic Packs. Here, my opponent was trying to maximize the overfarm, but accidentally lost track of Corviknight's energy. I make the Sky Attack. In comes Feraligatr, and the opponent is going to resign the match. So with this team, I did have some up and down sets. It's not a team that I would recommend for climbing. I did peak at 34-33 after a really good set, and then I had some pretty middling sets after that. So even though I wasn't able to get consistent results, I did still want to keep this footage and showcase it just to show as a benchmark for my attitude about Corviknight shifting. When it first released, the team that I tried in Go Battle League, if I'm not mistaken, was Guzzlord, Corviknight, and Charjabug. I believe the Charjabug was on the lead. So it was kind of more of my style team where there's some anti-meta core breaker Pokemon, like Charjabug was hard meta in previous seasons, but is more of a fringe pick at the moment. Guzzlord, not seen as frequently, but can be a very nice anti-meta answer to a lot of the Fire, Water, Grass cores that don't involve Azumarill, and it also walls off Drapion. So in that team, I was safe switching the Corviknight, and safe switching the Corviknight got it that little bit of energy head start that made a lot of those really uncomfortable neutral matchups, like in the One Shield, for example, feel better because I was able to actually get to a charge attack to pick up the KO instead of being in those awkward positions where you're able to land a charge attack, you're trying to farm down, and you just can't ever really farm down. So the next question is, how do we fix Corviknight? Because it's a Pokemon that I feel has an immense amount of potential. Like, there's some games where you can feel the potential of this mod and it can put in a lot of work. But the more you use it, the more over time, you really do feel the inconsistency of it. Because you can definitely try and play it with that playstyle, and that's how I was able to have a very nice set with it. And have, middling results. I just was going about even and then losing ELO as a result because of where I was on the leaderboards. But I really felt the inconsistency with it the more sets that I used. So I do feel that my thoughts on Great League Corviknight probably more closely align with my feelings on Ultra League Corviknight, where obviously its defensive typing is unreal. Steel plus flying, it's terrific. It has an insane amount of resistances, and purely based off that defensive typing, it's going to be able to get you some wins. And if you're able to get it in one of those advantage situations, like getting it a few sand attacks of advantage or a shield advantage, it's going to put in work. It is going to sweep some endgames. But there'll also be times where you end up in those true even energy matchups. And the Corviknight honestly feels quite underwhelming. We even had a 1-0 shield versus Shadow Feraligatr. The Sky Attack connected, it did significant damage, but to me, I feel the biggest issue with this Pokemon is Sand Attack. Giving a Steel Flying type a ground fast move is an incredibly cool idea, because ground, of course, covers the only 2 types that can hit Corviknight for super effective damage. It covers fire and it covers electric, and those are the only 2 weaknesses that Corviknight has. But since it's a non-same type attack bonus fast move, it's a 1-turn move and it has such a low base damage, in a lot of matchups you can end up doing only 1 damage per sand attack. Now you can a little bit remedy that, as I have, by running a very high attack weight Corviknight, so that way I'm actually able to beat Diggersby in the One Shield, but dropping all of that bulk causes other neutral matchups like Azumarill and Shadow Drapion to flip from wins to losses. So it feels like you're at a bit of a catch-22 with this Pokemon. And that, I think, about sums up my evolving views on Corviknight. First trying it, I really enjoyed it. I felt the potential of it, and in more games than not, especially when I was able to get it up a few sand attacks, it really felt like it was putting in some serious work. But with further extensive testing, I've begun to see a lot more of the limitations of this Pokemon, especially against Pokemon like Shadow Feraligatr. When it can use its insane defensive typing to have a type advantage over the opponent, it's going to do very well. But in those neutral matchups currently, it just feels very meh unless you're able to get that few sand attack head start or you can get a shield advantage. Thank you guys so much for watching. I know there was a lot of yapping at the end of the video, so if you made it all the way to here, honestly, big props. Thank you so much. And a special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.